Today we travel back in time to meet the first Sorcerer Supreme and see if he will now truly be the king. Find out what's going on as I hereby invite everyone to join me on my adventures through Marvel Snap. Hey everybody, it's Annabelle. So it's time for us to talk about our Season Pass. With the Season Pass not having its own Spotlight Cache, the first Thursday of every new season, I like to do a Spotlight Cache on that, just in case you want to know who the character is and what they can do. This time we are talking about Agamotto. Agamotto emerged from the benevolent elder goddess of Earth and was already an adult and the Sorcerer Supreme during the Stone Age. His childhood was marked by an insatiable curiosity and hunger for knowledge. Much to the delight of his mother, he bombarded her with countless questions every day, spanning various disciplines from history to sorcery, and his mother always was ready with an answer, and cherished the time she spent watching her son grow and learn alongside her. Agamotto matured, and his mother made the decision to venture beyond the confines of Earth, leaving the son to find his own path. He longed for her return and eventually resolved to seek her out for himself. Sitting beneath an old tree, he delved deep and thorough through the mystical world, and through his introspective journey, he stumbled upon the ruminants of what would later be known as the first form of magic, the Arcanum Ego, and he embarked on a journey to become what would later be known as the first Sorcerer Supreme. Agamotto gained a newfound understanding of his own strength, empowering him with an expanded vision. He embarked on a journey across the globe, tapping into the teachings of this new world to master the environmental magic. Along the way, he realized the illusionary nature of time and space, and he embraced the vastness of the cosmos. This made a tranquility envelop him, and a small jade orb called out to him, unveiling all the mysteries that had eluded him thus far. He named this jade item the Eye of Agamotto. Agamotto is a kind, loving, gentle person who has a flair for showmanship and the dramatic, wanting the spectacles of his magic to look as powerful and awe-inspiring as his spells truly are. He cares much for this world and will protect it at all costs. He is a fan of nature, loving both the beauty and power, while also respecting the destructive power of it. But do not let his calm demeanor fool you. He is also a fierce and relentless in battle, and once a battle starts, he will not stop until he has won. Agamotto is an extremely powerful magic user. Even though most of the time you will see him use basic magic spells and call out the spells as he casts them, this is only for show, as he is capable of creating interdimensional beings, and the extent of his powers effectively allow him to transcend physical abilities. He can travel at light speed, teleport himself and large groups of objects and people large distances, and can manipulate matter on a subatomic level. Agamotto is the first Sorcerer Supreme who spent years finding and mastering the Arcanum. This is represented in Marvel Snap, as he will allow you to master the Arcanum if you can somehow find them. They include Temporal Mastery, a power that can manipulate the flow of time in a variety of ways, such as time travel, the winds of Watoomb, that call upon the powers of Watoomb, an ancient air spirit, to conjure a powerful, rippling air current. The bolts of Balthakk, a spell that can call on the powers of Balthakk, a being of pure energy, to conjure an electrical discharge. The images of Icon, a spell summoned by invoking Icon, the Lord of Illusion, who can help you create multiple images at once. So in Marvel Snap, what this card is it is a 5/10, which has the description of start of game. It will shuffle 4 Ancient Arcana into your deck. We'll go over the Arcana in just a second. But all in all, I give this star rating 5. I would almost give this a 6, but I don't give 6s. So this card is incredibly powerful, and if I could recommend any card for you to maybe buy, this would be the one that I would go out of my way to buy. Let me talk about some of the things that just make this card so ridiculously broken. First of all, this card is basically 5 cards in one. You got the main card of Agamotto, which is just a 5/10 on its own, nothing too powerful. But the 4 spells are ridiculous. The first spell, which is the Temporal Manipulation, is a 1 energy, but has no cost. None of the spells have any cost in this. And we'll talk about that in just a second. But what Temporal Manipulation does is, on reveal, it'll give the Agamotto +3 power, and it'll put him into your hand if he's not in play or in your hand, and then it'll banish this. So banish is a new keyword that basically at the end of when it resolves, it'll move to a new zone known as the Banish Zone, and that Banish Zone to this point can't be really interacted with. So let's talk about the first spell called Temporal Manipulation, because this card is based on the 4 spells that it does. So the first card, which is Temporal Manipulation, is basically the equivalent of getting 2 of Thanos' stone. And just the fact that I'm saying that you're combining 2 of Thanos' stones is pretty powerful just to begin with. The first one that you're basically getting is the stone. Which stone of Thanos is it? The Time Stone, which basically allows you to draw Thanos. So the first part of it is the equivalent of a Time Stone. And the other one... Stop that, Thanos. Come on. Why do you keep doing this? Hang on. Thanos is being mean. Okay, I'm going to try backwards. And the second one is basically the equivalent of having the Power Stone. Now, it's not quite the Power Stone because it won't give Agamotto the +10, but it'll give him the +3. So basically, you're adding the power of 2 different stones, Time Stones, by just casting the first spell. The second spell is the Wind. The winds, for all intents and purposes, are the equivalent of basically playing a hobgoblin. It's actually somewhere between a green goblin and a hobgoblin. If there was a 4-drop of a goblin, I think it would be right where this would fall in. But you're only paying 2 to get that power. Now, while the move to the right is semi-interesting and will help you out in some situations, just being able to play down on 2, the equivalent power of basically a hobgoblin, not quite a hobgoblin, not quite a green goblin, but somewhere right in between. Because if you look at the green goblin is -3, the hobgoblin is -8. This would fall somewhere in between, but it's only costing you 2. The third spell that we're looking at is going to be the bolts. The bolts is 3 cost, and it's basically the equivalent of playing a wave. Now, you don't get the energy, you don't get the power of wave, but you also don't have your opponent being able to play off that wave. So it's a wave only for yourself, but you lose the 5 power off of it. And the last spell on here is the images. And the images is basically the equivalent of playing a Taskmaster 2 times. Because it'll take whatever card is the highest in there and make 2 more copies of it. Which, if it is an on-reveal card, the on-reveal will trigger again. Now, an important thing to know about its first spell. The first spell will still get Agamotto back if you discard Agamotto or destroy Agamotto. The other thing that you must know about the first spell is the fact that it can work on something like Call Obsidian. It's still counted as a card on your field, and it's still counted as a 1-drop for the purposes of Call Obsidian. Now, they may fix that in the future. I think they might, because it's kind of broken that you can just play that and play Call Obsidian on top of it. Now, the most important thing to remember about this particular use of the spells is the spells banish at the end regardless of anything else that happens. So you cannot use the spells on places that have wand-like effects. Because the spell will show up, the spell will use itself, and then the spell will banish. So the second time it tries to look for the spell, it's not there. This will also banish itself if you play it into a location where a Cosmo-like effect would be happening. Now, it won't trigger because all of the spells happen to be an on-reveal effect. Now, that might change in the future, so they stop all being on-reveal, because right now all the spells can be stopped by Cosmo. But even if you play it in a Cosmo-like location, the spell will still banish itself at the end. So nothing's going to stop it from banishing no matter what you do. The other thing that you have to be curious about and cautious about is because these spells do not have power. They do not have power in any way, shape, or form. They have cost. There is so far no way that they can use any kind of search ability to get these cards. You can use the E-Tree if you want to, but if you're trying to get these spells out cheaper, by playing something like a Lady Jane Foster or by playing a Ravonna Renslayer, that's not going to happen. Even if you Mr. Negative, the Mr. Negative's not going to draw them because they don't have power. Now maybe down the road they'll change the wording on Mr. Negative and some of the other cards to fix that, but just be cautious about what you're doing on that. All in all, this card is basically the equivalent of playing a Red Skull on most days. Just for a power spike, if nothing else. There's a lot of times where on turn 5 you're having a problem finding a card. And if somehow you can use the one cost spell, you're getting up to 513, which is just one power less than Red Skull, and none of the downside. Another thing that you gotta be kind of worrisome about, because when the game starts, for some reason, Agamotto is the first card that I've seen, and maybe they're changing this in the future, where if your opponent's playing it, you'll see that they're playing the card at the beginning of the game. You'll see the animation of them putting spells in the deck. Now, this might be a change that Second Gen is doing for future, so you can be more knowing of when your opponent's playing a Agamotto or playing a Airsham or playing a Thanos, just so that you can be more aware of cards like those cards, which are interesting cards to be aware of. And it's kind of weird that you aren't usually aware of them. But one of the things that you gotta know about this is this works really decently well with Galactus. And if you see somebody who's starting to play the Agamotto, note that they might have a Galactus in their deck, because there's two really good cards for Galactus on this. First, the wind really helps out Galactus, and secondly, the bolts really help out Galactus. Last thing I do want to mention about this card. Whoever it is, I don't know whoever in Second Dinner did this, designed the winds and designed the bolts. Please, do me a favor, do everybody a favor. Either change the color of the winds or change the color of the bolts. Make the bolts red or yellow, or make the wind red or yellow. I don't care what you do. The number of times that I have gotten bolts in my hand and thought it was winds, or gotten winds in my hand and thought it was bolts, is not a non-zero amount. Now, that's not the end of the world, because both of them are decently good, but it's really hard to notice at a glance which one you have, and you have to be really cautious about which one you're casting and where you're casting it, because both of their colors are very blue, and both of their arts look very similar to each other, and they're very close in energy manipulation, with one being 2 and one being 3. I really hope that that's something that can get changed, where either the winds changes color or the bolts change color. But that just might be a me thing, and nobody else is having that issue. All in all, I will give you a bit of warning about this card. 2 warnings, I should say. The first warning is there gets to be a trap that you can fall into when you start playing this card, to play the spells no matter what. And while that's an interesting way to go about it, and it's not horribly bad to go that route, you gotta play the spells when they make sense. And sometimes you can have the issue where you get the spells and there's really no good place to play them, and they just clog up your hand. And also, there are times where your opponents can get the spells. They might change that in the future. It is weird that a card like Baron Zemo can get your Temporal Manipulation if you haven't drawn it, because it's kind of a dead draw for them. It's not even as good as a stone. And it's kind of weird that you can use the spells in certain situations, like Volmare. You can play the spell into Volmare and it'll still count as something dying there. Not sure if they want those to exist that way or if they'll fix that in the future. Secondly, I will say that where this card currently is, it is going to get nerfed. I'm not sure when it'll get nerfed. It's probably not going to be this month, but I wouldn't be surprised if something in this month got it nerfed. It'd be rare for a card to get nerfed in the month it comes out, but it is going to get nerfed down the road. And it might be the next card that we're talking about in the same vein that we're talking about Thanos, where they just cannot figure out how to adjust this card well. So while this is a great card, and maybe one of the best spotlight caches that I've even seen, season passes that I've even seen, I should see. And I always think that you'll have a good spot if you pick up the Agamotto. Just do be cautious about the fact that it is going to be a problematic card in the future. Anyways, I want to thank you all so much for watching, and as always, remember, play for fun.